Okay, so the last week when we met, we were talking about the elasticity of demand. And the reasoning why we have the elasticity of demand is that the law of demand is a qualitative phenomenon. It tells us that ceteris paribus, other things being equal, there is an inverse relationship between the price and demand. Okay, and I warned you that never say demand and price, because then the whole mechanism, the whole circular relationship goes through a complete change. Okay, always name the variable which is the cause, and then name the variable which is the effect. So we assume that the demand is a dependent variable and price is an independent variable. So we assume that the price changes have an impact on the demand, quantity demanded. So then we should say, always say, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand, never say demand and price. And then as a disclaimer, also say ceteris paribus, which means other things being equal. No change in income, no change in fashion, same population, same technology, same number of substitutes and complementary goods, nothing changed. The only thing changed is the price of the product, and the demand of the product changes accordingly. But that is a qualitative phenomenon. We need to quantify that. The law of demand tells what happens. How much happens, that it doesn't tell. For this, we need to make improvisation and make a new phenomenon called elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is the sensitivity / responsiveness. Okay, so basically it shows how much demand is responsive to the changes in the price. And the formula is very simple. It is change in demand. I think, yeah, you can see here, delta always represents change in business studies. Change in demand divided by the original demand, put them in a parenthesis, in a bracket, and everything divided by change in price divided by the price. You can even see this way, because I find that there's so many sign of division complicated. You can even write like this. For instance, you can say that the elasticity of demand, I will call it P here. It means the price elasticity of demand is equal to change in demand divided by change in price, and then multiply by original price divided by original demand. So basically, if we have price and demand, and if the price jumps from 5 to 6, and the demand falls according to law of demand, demand falls from 40 to 30. In this case, the change in demand is -10, because the original demand was 40 and it went down to 30. So it fell down by -10 units. Then the change in price is +1, because price went from 5 to 6. Okay, and then the original price is P, and the original demand is 40. So that doesn't change. And then we put these numbers in the formula. Change in demand is -10. Change in price is +1. And then the original demand is 40. And original price is 5. Okay. And when you solve this equation, so change in demand, change in price. Oh, no, I did opposite. It has to be price divided by demand. So let me erase it. So this has to be, yeah, so this is the price, original price is 5, and original demand is 40, yeah, if I go by the formula. When I solve it, it comes to be minus 1.25. But I gave you a very important instruction that in this formula, even though the sign is negative, never consider the sign at all. The reason is that higher a negative number, basically lower it is. So our whole interpretation would go a change. So even though in the formula, the sign does exist, look, demand change in delta, delta D over delta P would always be negative. If demand falls, price goes up. No, what I'm saying. If price falls, demand goes up. And if the price goes up, demand will fall. So basically, this part of the formula would always be negative. But remember, for the sake of interpretation, for the sake of making a conclusion, we just ignore the negative sign. Okay, so in mathematical terms, there is a minus sign, but in interpretation terms, in application terms, we ignore the delta. We ignore the minus sign. So this is how we proceed. Okay, it's very straightforward. Righto, here we go. The price elasticity of demand depends upon several factors. More substitutes you have, more sensitive the demand is. I think I gave the example that if there is only tea, no coffee. Imagine a scenario. We assume that tea and coffee are close substitutes. If there is only tea available, no coffee available, then even if the price of tea increases, its demand will not fall so much because people have no choice. But if tea and coffee are available in sufficient quantity, and if the price of tea went up, then many consumers, they will switch over to coffee instantly. And then the fall in the demand of tea would be very substantial. Therefore, the price elasticity of demand will go up. Yeah. If the price of automobiles fall and people are desperately queuing up to buy the automobile, then even if the price of petrol goes up, the demand for petrol will not fall so much, because after all, people have to drive by gasoline, you know? Yep. Let me give you one more example. It's a very good question. I think we need to go back to the previous slide. Good question. I appreciate it. I'll give you one example with two people with the two different numbers, and then you make interpretation. Very good question, I would say. Let's say we talk about we talk about price of coffee. So let me write down the price of coffee. And let's say that we are comparing, let's say it's a marketing course, and you are comparing the consumer behavior, that how people react when the price of coffee changes, okay? And let's say that it's a small study and you have only two consumers. There is somebody called A, and then there is one consumer, his name is, her name is B. The price of coffee, when it was 10 euros, this guy A was consuming maybe 2 kilos. And this guy was also consuming 2 kilos. I on purposely kept these numbers same. Now the price went down. Coffee has become cheaper. With the decrease in the price of coffee, this guy has doubled his consumption. He's so much, fascinated by the price fall of coffee. Maybe he's like me. But this B is a turtle, the slow guy. So he consumes 3. But the both, if you look, One thing is for sure, that with the fall in the price, both have increased the consumption, but the quantity of change, responsiveness, look, they both reacted to the price change, did they? But do they have same reaction? No, this is precisely when you say that the reaction is same. Falling price, more demand. Reaction is same, but is the extent of reaction same? Is the quantity of reaction same? It's so visible. No, definitely not. But then we go by the formula. The formula is the price elasticity of demand is equal to change in demand divided by change in price. This component would always be negative, because if price and demand, they always move in the opposite direction. But then we also have price divided by the demand. Okay, now see what happens. Let's calculate according to this formula elasticity of demand of A. So I can say price elasticity of this person A. Okay, so that will distinguish. Change in demand is +2. Change in price is how much? -3. So one thing is for sure, that if a number, if a numerator or denominator, one of them is positive and negative, the product is always negative. That's for sure, right? You divide -3 by +2 or +3 by -2, the sign would be negative. And then we multiply by the original price, which is 10. And we have the original demand, which is 2. Here, we also do the calculation for price elasticity for the person B. I'll solve the equation a bit later, but let me first put the numbers. Change in demand this time is +1, because you see 2 to 3, yeah? So the change in demand is 1 unit, but it's positive, is it? It went up, it's plus. But the change in price is same, -3. Original price was 10 to begin with, and the original demand by B was 2. Without calculation, I want to ask you, if you don't have, because this is an overly simplified example, and I on purpose pick the starting quantity of A and B same. Without calculation, who is responding more to the change in price, A or B? A or B? Because look, A is doubling his consumption. Look, the price is same for both consumers. When you go to the market, whether you buy, I buy, somebody else buy, the same product, same brand, same time, the price is same. And our starting consumption is same, but we respond differently. So without calculation, I know for sure that the reaction, responsiveness of A is more than B. So we know in the heart of our hearts that the price elasticity of A should be more than the price elasticity of B. But see what happens when we consider negative signs. So what happens here? This is 20, this is 6. So 20 divided by 6 is it 20, right? Or did I write opposite? No, it should be P. No, price is 10 and the demand is 2. No, I'm okay, fine, all good. So 20 divided by 6 is minus 3.3 something. Yeah, but minus 3.3, okay? And look at this calculation. 10 divided by 6, 1.67. With a sign, still minus. Which number is bigger? Is -3, if you consider the negative sign, is minus 3.3 bigger or is minus 1.7 bigger? If you consider, so it means that the price elasticity of this person should be larger. But we see with our own naked eyes that the reaction of A is stronger than the reaction of B. So when we take the negative sign, then this number seems bigger than this number. And we may end up misinterpreting that B's reaction is stronger than A's reaction. Whereas we have seen with our own eyes that A's reaction is stronger than B. A doubled his consumption. There's a 100% increase in A's coffee consumption, whereas there is a 50% consumption increase in case of B. Without calculating, this is the reason why I took the starting consumption same. But now when we ignore the negative sign, then A's reaction is 3.3, B's reaction is 1.67 or whatever, yeah. And now you can say that 3.3 is larger than 1.67. Does it make a difference? So with the inclusion of sign, negative sign, our interpretation can go haywire, totally opposite. So this is why we are very selfish people. We are using mathematics, but the interpretation we are doing according to the law of economics. Does it make sense? Therefore, you need to take the absolute values, not the signed values. Yeah, make sense? Sometimes we get confused with the positive and negative. Sometimes we say that, especially when in the winter time, when you talk about the temperature, temperature was yesterday, let's say, was -10, today it went to -20. So we don't know whether numerically it went up or went down. Sometimes we get the word in English called bamboozled. So we can get bamboozled by the signs. Yeah. But did I answer your question? So that is the reason why we take, because see, in the mathematical terms, there is a very strong school of thought who says that the negative numbers are unreal numbers. Negative are unreal number. You can say at the most or at the least that something is zero, but you can never say that something is negative. We have 100 chairs, but we have 0 refrigerator here. You will never say there's a negative refrigerator. So something exists is positive, something doesn't exist is 0. So this is why even in mathematics, we assume that the negative numbers are imaginary numbers. But here, you don't need to go too much into mathematics, but you can see, you have seen with this example that if we include a negative sign, our whole interpretation would go change. So this is why we ignore it, yeah? But have you understood the phenomenon? Is it fine? Good. All right, now different pictures. If you look at all these demand curves, these blue lines, especially in the first part and the second part, the demand curve is downward sloping, yeah? Only please focus on diagram 1 and 2. Don't look at 3 and 4. 1 and 2. Is demand curve downward sloping? And this is very normal, right? We always know that, well, we hope we know that the demand curve is downward sloping because there is an inverse relationship between price and demand. But do you see that the slope of both demand curves are same? Are they looking same, this and this? No. Look, there's a massive change in the price, and there is a very minimum increase or change in the demand. Look at this blue, this darkened rectangle with a sky blue thing. So this shows change in price, and this yellow rectangle shows change in the demand. So overall, change in price is larger than the change in demand. This box shows overall change in the price. The blue one, the sky blue, and this yellow one shows the overall change in the demand. So you can see that the delta D is smaller and delta P is larger. So in this case, should I say that the elasticity of demand is more or less? What should I say? Now you look at this shape of the demand curve. What do you see? How you interpret it? Is it a higher elasticity case or lower elasticity case?
I think low.
Low, yes. Why so? Any ideas? Because the increase, or not, I shouldn't say increase, decrease, I should say change. The change in price, look at this jump from this price to this price. And look at the shift in the quantity demanded. There's a very minuscule change in the quantity, but there's a massive increase or decrease in the price. That would give you, that will help you to make this type of demand curve, which has a big slope, very big slope. So usually the demand curves which you draw and they have very sharp slope, like a hill, strong descend or ascend. You can recall, is it difficult to climb if you have to walk on a hill like this? You know, it's difficult to walk here. So if you have this type of shape of the demand curve, then the elasticity is low, less elastic. But just compare it with this one, the next one, the second shape. In the second shape, look at that. This time, the price change is small. You know, look at the difference between P1 and P2, and look at the change. Look at the difference between the quantity. Who increases this time? Who's more? Delta D or delta P? Who's more?
Delta D as demand.
Delta D is bigger, much bigger. Change in demand is so big, but the comparatively change in the price is small. So in this case, when you draw the shape, the demand curve would be very flat. The trajectory of the demand curve would be flat. Means it's not very big slope. In that case, the elasticity of demand would be larger. Means the demand reacts more than proportionately to the change in price. Can I ask you one thing? Which kind of goods, which type of demands for goods and services would fall in this category, relatively inelastic, and which type of goods and services would fall in this category, relatively elastic? Do you recall something which reacts a lot to the price changes? Do you recall something, certain demands which do not respond too much to the price changes? Any thought? Yes, sir. Gasoline. If it is a necessity, right? If you have a car and the car is based on gasoline, it's not electric. You are living far away. You have to do work. You have to drop your kids to school. Then the demand is almost inelastic. You have no choice. I mean, you have to save money. You have to do thrifting from elsewhere. Maybe you cut short your budget from elsewhere. Maybe you don't go to holidays. Yeah. But I extend the example from gasoline to food, for example. The essential goods, everything which falls in the category of essentials, necessities. Basically, they are in this category. We see the prices are increasing all over EU these days, but we still consume. Maybe we don't consume too much, we don't buy too much, but we try to minimize the waste. Yeah, but we still eat that much, the amount which used to. We don't eat less. Well, maybe we do, but then I would say that the reaction of quantity fall. Either with the increase in the price of food items in the EU today, Now, there is either very small change in the quantity demanded, or there's no change in the quantity demanded. So I would say that if you have to draw a picture of the consumer behavior today, this seems to be more or less this kind of shape. Yeah, does it make sense? Somebody raised hand at the back. Yeah, first you and then Sarah. Resume. Okay, you're right. We have three categories of items, commodities. The one is, I would say, necessities, as somebody said, essentials. Most of the essential goods, their consumer reaction to the price change is like this. When the food of milk, eggs, vegetables, it falls, even then we don't start eating 5 times, 6 times a day. We have certain fixed consumption habits, right? And even if the price goes up, maybe we will be spending a little bit more rationally. If we used to buy 3 cans of milk, maybe we buy 2 cans or maybe something like this, but the reaction would still be not so much. So I would say that if you have to draw a picture of the necessities, essentials, it would more or less look like this. But on the other extreme, if you talk about the luxuries, luxuries are highly price and income sensitive. If Ferrari becomes very cheap nowadays, then all those people who dream about it, they would even take a loan. So imagine that Ferrari becomes, the new Ferrari will be getting with, let's say 50,000 euros. And you have a saving of 20,000 euros. You will not even mind borrowing another 30,000. And if you're told that this decline, this special price of Ferrari is only for 1 month, there'll be queues, long queues outside the banks. If Ferrari announces that, you know what, we are giving 80% discount on all our models, even if you don't have enough money in your pocket, you will not mind borrowing because it's a lifetime. For those people who love automobiles, not like me, I'm very happy with my old old car. It's okay, no problem. But those people who really love automobiles, they would go berserk. They will just go, hey, I need to take it. Similarly, there are many goods, many clothing lines which are very luxurious, very elitist. And if you find that the price is slashed, there is a big fall in the. Yeah, I remember. I can share one instance with you that there. When I was studying in Britain, I used to work for this small electronic goods. And after Christmas, the Boxing Day, the announcement was that when the store opens, everything. You see, visualize the showroom of electronic goods, refrigerator, all the expensive gadgets. There is a 30% straight away fall discount on every item. And when the store opened, not the Boxing Day and the day after, yeah, we had to call the cops. Yeah, and I'm talking about a small city. And when we read next day, when we read the news that how the consumers were reacting in London, in Liverpool, it was crazy. Even in the small city where I was based in, even there, it was impossible to manage the crowd. So it means what? There was a 30% fall in the price, but the consumption went up by maybe 100% or even more. So I would say that on that day, the price elasticity of demand was 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know how much. Is the point? For the luxuries, if you are planning your holidays and you read on some web page that there is going to be, this whole all-inclusive trip to, let's say, Cyprus is only for 100 euros for 4 nights. One person, including the airfare, hotel, food, everything is 100 euros. I bet you will book the flight straight away. You see my point? Why so? Because certain destinations are luxurious, they're expensive. And when you see the price falls, there is a massive disproportionate increase in the demand. But if you read in the Lidl's pamphlet that potato, the price per kilo is euro and 120 cents. A euro and 20 cents. And next weekend, the price would fall to 80 cents. Will you see the queues in Lidl? People buying potatoes. Will you see it? Queues. The Lidl has to call the police. So you see my point. As the goods and services, they go away from necessities to luxuries, then we start moving toward this kind of, there's a transition from figure A to figure 2, sorry, figure 1 to figure 2. Number 3 is an extreme example of insensitivity. When demand is not, responding at all. Whatever is the price, you buy it. Medicines, essential medicines, food. There's some extreme example where the price change doesn't make any difference at all. And then this is another extreme example. I don't know whether I can find some example for it or not. This is ultra sensitive demand. There's a minor increase in the price. Demand becomes zero. Absolutely, you stop consumption. The price, there's a minor decline. Demand become infinity. You see, it's a very sensitive, ultra, I would not say very, but it's super ultra sensitive case when the price, a minor fall in the price and demand becomes infinity. Look at the demand curve, it's going straight away. And there's a minor increase in the price, people stop consumption altogether. It's a very strong love and hate relationship. A minor decrease in the price and demand increases unprecedentedly. There's a minor increase in the price, demand becomes zero. For a minor decrease, demand becomes infinity. For a minor increase in the price, demand becomes zero. Well, this is a very, very extreme case of, but when you are doing some survey, some research, we have to consider all these possibilities. Okay, more realistic figures are this and this. These are extreme cases, and this is very, very, very extreme. I would say this is still possible for very basic items. It doesn't matter. Maybe you don't realize because here in Finland, the health is very, is extremely subsidized or nearly free. But in many countries, if somebody is sick, and the doctor prescribe, okay, we are going to perform the surgery, we need these medicines right now. And the person goes out, and the person knew that the price lost until yesterday, when doctor gave the prescription yesterday, was maybe $10, but today it's $100. I don't know whether there's a blackmailing, corruption, whatever, but maybe they know the price went up from 10 to 100. People would still buy the medicine. Would you bargain with the pharmacist? Would you come back and tell doctor, can we buy the medicine tomorrow when it becomes cheaper? No way. Visualize the situation. So I would say that this is still, this phenomenon, number 3, is still observable, but this is, honestly, I don't find any example. I can redraw these pictures by myself, and then we can see that how the demand, how you visualize it. Let me have a new frame. Yeah. So I would say, take the case of this demand curve, right? This is price. I will not be spending time in labeling. This is demand curve, right? If I imaginarily extend this line to the origin, right? And there's an angle of 45 degrees. Yeah. I would say that then the price elasticity is exactly equal to 1. In other words, there is a 5% increase in the price, there is a 5% decrease in the demand. So they are matching. And if the demand curve is like this, yeah, means less than 45-degree angle, then the price elasticity is less sensitive. Sorry, more sensitive. I'm sorry, yeah. I would say it's more elastic. And if the if the demand curve is like this very sharp trajectory, then I would say that the price elasticity is less. If the demand curve is absolutely dumb, non-reactive, no, I shouldn't say dumb, numb. So the demand curve is absolutely on the 90-degree of the vertical axis, then I would say the price elasticity is 0. Price is too high, is too low, demand is same. The other extreme is that, which I was talking about, that when the price elasticity is infinity, we use this fallen 8 as a sign of infinity, right? In this case, the price increased this much, very minuscule, demand becomes 0. Demand reacts so much, and the price falls a little bit, a wee bit, and demand goes as far as infinity. The example which you are giving, to me, it falls more in this category. Yeah, like many times, okay, Bitcoin is an exception, many times I know in some countries people buy gold not only for the consumption purpose but also for the investment purpose. Like, for example, in India, Indian households, Indian women have the maximum gold in the world, more than the USA has in the Fox Knot. You know that place where they have the bricks of gold and they are printing money against it. So why they have it? Because the gold can be used as a consumption. When you go to the parties, you can flaunt your wealth, ornaments. But then you can, if you are running short of, if there's a problem, you can just go to the goldsmith, sell them, get money. So gold is a classic example of consumption plus investment good. And many times people, I know in some countries, especially in the South Asia, I know, they're waiting for the gold prices to go down. The moment the price go down, they just rush to the goldsmith shop and they buy it. So this way, but I would say that the example which you are giving is falling more in this category. Okay, but thank you so much. Very important point you raised. Is anybody else having any point to discuss, to share? All right. Next, we discuss the topic, which is monetary policy. But this topic I would start with a new recording, okay? So I don't want to continue the same recording for the monetary policy. You see my point? So when we have a break, I would stop the meeting, and my friends in Zoom, please join me again after the break, because I want to have a fresh, altogether new recording for the monetary policy. So now I stop recording, and if you have any questions about these slides, anything about price elasticity of demand, we can discuss, or maybe in the 5-6 minutes, we take a break, and then we meet at 11 o'clock in the other room where we have the lecture. So